welcome to part 2 of my tutorial where I will teach you how to make logins and yeah. So, uh, hold on. Okay, page. So, uh, oops. For our login, we'll be making use of a library called, two libraries or modules called bcrypt and SQLite 3. So bcrypt is used for cryptography, of course, crypt, right? So this will be for hashing, and SQLite will be for databasing. So for our login, we'll basically, this is the plan. So when the client, right, when a user sends some information to the server, they want to log in, right? We want them to supply a username and a password. So we'll check this in our database. So we're gonna have a database called users, right? I mean a database with a table called users, and then for example, this will be maybe an ID. This is the username. Just put a uname just for this example, and PW, right? So we'll check every time they log in. We'll check this username with whatever's in the database. So we'll make use of SQL to query. We'll see, you know, we'll look for the account who has, this username. And then once we find the specific account, let's say, it's this one, right? Admin, right? And then we get their password and we cross-check it with this password. However, in the case of cryptography, most of the time you don't want to store the passwords in plain text. So this password here is not actually the password that the user signed up with. This will be the this will be the password that's already hashed. So whatever's in here, everything is just hashed. So we can't just read it off. Even the people, even the system admins, sysadmins, will not have any idea what the passwords are. So if anyone breaches security, gets into the database, they can just look at everyone's passwords in plain text. So you might be thinking, if the passwords are all hashed, how are we gonna check that this password matches the password that's in the database? Well, if you use a bit of common sense, right? You can hash this one too, hash this, and then check the hash with this one in here. And this is just industry standard, so yeah. Yeah, I'm making use of bcrypt because bcrypt is used for PHP. I mean, used in PHP. PHP has a function, a built-in function called password hash, and it uses bcrypt, so it's native, I guess. So here, what are we gonna do? So, for example, we'll be in our login page, and we'll supply a username and a password. Now, this username will get here, right? However, first you want to make sure that the user is not already logged in, right? So here I have declared two methods to access this page. So there's a get and post. So we want to use the get if the user is accessing the page, and we want to use the post when the user is sending information to the server, or rather Flask. So if username is in session, well, if the session has data in it and the data is called username, right? And the session isn't just completely wiped clean. It's not just some blank session. Then that means they're already logged in, and that they should be redirected to index, which is, the store page, the shop page, right? Otherwise, if they're not already logged in, we'll allow them to, access this page because we wouldn't want someone who's already logged in to log in twice. So now that that's taken care of, for the post method where they're sending data to the server, we'll have to initialize a new connection to the database. So the database file is lam.shop.db. Take note that SQLite 3 is different from MySQL and PostgreSQL, PostgreSQL, or MariaDB. Um, yeah, because SQLite 3 is serverless, so I don't have to have a server running. I just have to have a database file, and I can query into it. So con will be our new connection. We'll connect, well, SQLite 3 dot connect, right? We'll connect to lam.shop.db, which is this file, and we need to have a cursor. So a cursor would be this, flashing thing, which tells us where we're at, right? Or it could, you could think of it as your mouse cursor, the thing I'm moving right now. And then we'll need to get the input user and the password. So input user, if I would be admin, input password would be whatever I put here. And notice how I'm encoding it in UTF-8 because bcrypt, when we check the passwords with each other here, right? When we check the hashes, we need both of them to be in bytes and not in strings because the cryptography algorithm is, that is a mathematical operation, right? And then they make use of the bytes to, hash. So we need them to be in bytes. However, whatever I put into the database is um, is basically the bytes, and then converted into a string form. So when I query it out of the database, I'll have to turn it back into bytes. So here, I select the password from the users table, where the username is this. So this question mark, right, acts as a placeholder, so that uh, I can't just put in something dangerous, like I can't just perform SQL injection. So thankfully, Flask has a built-in functionality to prevent SQL injection, and that is just supply a second argument, which is a tuple of everything I want to put into the placeholders. And after I query, I want to fetch the first row that I get. So I mean, I'm not gonna have two users with the same username, so that's not a problem. So I'm gonna fetch the first row, and I'm gonna close the connection because I don't need to do anything else in the database. Now, if the queried password, basically the number of, you know, basically the row that I get after I fetch, right? The first row that I fetch isn't just none, because this is gonna be a tuple of, since it's just password, this is gonna be hashed password, right? If it's not none, basically if it's not empty, um, that means that I keyed in a username that exists in the database, and then it will check my password, bcrypt.checkpw. It will check this input password with the password that's in the database. So here I have to convert it into bytes. Here I already converted it into bytes. Now you see here, yeah, you can see check PW. Password has to be in bytes, hash password has to be in bytes, and it'll return a true or false, a boolean true or false. Now, if this returns true, meaning the password matches, it'll start our session, it'll put in our username, right? It'll store our username in the session, and this will be what's used to, identify that we're logged in on other pages. Session.permanent isn't actually permanent. It's like just 30 days, right? So basically this will keep my authentication cookie for 30 days. After that, I'll have to log in again. And then once I'm logged in, it'll just send me into the shop page, right? As you can see here. Now, if the password doesn't match, we'll just redirect them back to login, where it will say the password or username is incorrect. So I'll just put here, and. So here you can see in the login.html, I have a p tag with with a placeholder message. So usually it'll be blank, but in the case where I put in some uh, data that doesn't really let us log in, it'll have a message incorrect password or username. And this is also true for if there's no user in the database with the same username as the one as applied. Yeah, and that is basically it for the login.